Over 1,300 British redcoats lie dead, put to death by a 20,000-man force of spear-wielding Zulu warriors by an isolated hill in Natal, South Africa, called Isandlwana. The most powerful empire on earth has been humiliated. Could it get any worse for the British Army, as 7,000 Zulus advanced towards a small mission and defended only by 150 men? What happened next became one of the most famous last stands in history. This is the Battle of Rorke's Drift. It is January 1879. Lieutenant General Lord Chelmsford leads a British invasion into Zululand, with the aim to expand imperial control in southern Africa. Lord Chelmsford divided his forces into 5 columns, 3 to enter Zululand at different points, and the other 2 were to remain behind to guard against Zulu raids. Lord Chelmsford, with his column, crossed the river into Zululand at Rorke's Drift, so sparking war with Cetshwayo, the leader of the Zulus. The assumption in British command circles is simple: superior firepower would easily crush any resistance. But the Zulu army was not a loose tribal force, but well-disciplined, organised, and fast. On the 22nd of January 1879, a Zulu force of around 20,000 men take Lord Chelmsford's column by surprise at the British camp at Isandlwana. The British camp at Isandlwana isn't fortified, and the troops are spread thin. The British fire volleys from their Martini Henry rifles, tearing gaps into the advancing Zulu lines, but they keep coming. Eventually, ammunition distribution falters and units become isolated, and by mid-afternoon it collapses. Around 1,300 British soldiers are killed. It is one of the worst defeats ever inflicted on a then modern army by an indigenous force. But the Zulu army isn't finished yet. Breaking off from the battlefield, several thousand warriors move towards Rorke's Drift. They are led by Dabula Manzi, the half-brother of the king Cetshwayo, and the commander of the Undi Corps. These are experienced fighters and mostly carry a short stabbing spear designed for brutal close combat. It is paired with a large oxide shield, and only a few have firearms. They have already shattered one British force. The 150 defenders of Rorke's Drift that they now approach are surely going to be no resistance. Riders surviving the catastrophe of Isandlwana reach Rorke's Drift with the unsettling news that Rorke's Drift was the new front line in the war and the Zulus were approaching. Lieutenant John Chard of the Royal Engineers, who found himself at Rorke's Drift building a pontoon bridge over the Buffalo River to aid in the invasion of Zululand. Lieutenant Gonville Bromhead, who was part of Chelmsford's main invasion force, who was ordered to stay behind at Rorke's Drift with his company of the 24th Regiment of Foot until he could be relieved by reinforcements. James Dalton, who was an acting assistant commissariat. All knew that they had hospital patients, and Dalton argued that retreating would mean being caught and destroyed in the open, especially with the sick. They couldn't have hoped to outrun the Zulus. The fateful decision was made to stay and fight. Rorke's Drift wasn't prepared for defensive actions. After all, it was formerly a mission and now an hospital. Thankfully for the British, Rorke's Drift could be turned into a relatively serviceable defensive position. 2 of the buildings, even though they had thatched roofs, were only 30 yards apart, making it easy to construct a defensive wall. Oxen wagons were turned over onto their sides to create defensive walls. These defences were built quickly. Even biscuit boxes and mealie bags were used in their construction. However, no matter how quickly these defences were raised, the defences were to prove vital later in the day. Rorke's Drift had been turned into a formidable mini-fortress, especially to anyone attacking with spears and shields. At 4:30, the Zulus made their first assault against the south wall of Rorke's Drift. The assault was ferocious. Due to British skill at arms, Zulu losses were staggering, and the assault on the south side of Rorke's Drift faltered. During the attack on the south side, the Zulus moved to attack the north side as well. Only the high rate of fire from the British kept the Zulu at bay. But the Zulu didn't stop. They carried on attacking, probing for weaknesses. During the evening, the most fierce fighting was taking place around the hospital. The hospital's thatched roof was set alight. There was no connecting doors between the rooms in the hospital. The British had to use their bayonets to create holes in the walls to escape, all whilst under attack by the Zulu, a truly hand-to-hand close-quarters fight. They managed to evacuate the survivors from the hospital into the defensive perimeter. The British pulled back to a smaller, tighter defensive box. The Zulu launched repeated attacks. Gun flashes light the night, and the shadows of Zulus cast by the hospital fire must have been terrifying. Gradually, the Zulu attacks started to slow, and eventually morning came. The battle was over. Out of roughly 150 defenders, it is by a miracle that only 15 were killed. Zulu casualties are estimated at around 350 to 600 killed and several hundred wounded. In the immediate aftermath of Isandlwana's catastrophe, Rorke's Drift becomes a symbol. 11 Victoria Crosses are awarded, the most ever for a single action. But the war continues. In the end, the Zulu are defeated, Ketchwayo is captured, and Zulu land is absorbed into the British Empire. Rorke's Drift becomes a legend.